Half-Life Exile 2 is by far one of the most refreshing gaming experiences I've had this entire year, period. And I'm completely new to PoE, so going in, I thought I was going to be utter trash. I thought people were going to be toxic because I was utter trash, and it's been the complete opposite. Now, we've been streaming on twitch.tv/ZoxysCon. Pros, newbies, we're all there. We're just having a blast. And again, going through the game, figuring things out for myself, theory crafting, and really honestly trying to get into this universe has been super insane. And I want to talk to that, especially for those of you guys that think you're going to be trash bins or just absolute garbage. No, you can still enjoy this game. So let's go ahead and let's jump into it, all right? So first things first, the first thing you do when you first get into the game is you pick your character, right? Now, I am currently level 25. I actually decided to go with the monk. Now, why exactly did I pick the monk? Well, the monk just kind of resonated with me, right? The bow staff, the shaved head, you know, the elements. And I mean, granted, you're able to use elements with other classes, but I think it's really important to, of course, pick what you like, right? Because you're going to be trying to do a lot, right? And I really didn't realize how expansive everything was going to get at the point of actually picking just your character. I thought I'd just go in, kind of, you know, get the motions of everything. But you start out very bare bones, but it will start to ramp as you play, right? Now, the next thing that, you know, I kind of decided to really start to look at was actually the passive skill tree. Now, I will say when you first take a look at this, this is very overwhelming, right? I think I can say this comfortably for everyone coming in fresh. You look at this and you're like, oh, there's no way. You're like, there's no way, man. There's absolutely no way. And I think that that's something for me that was the challenge, right? It was like, okay, we got to figure this out. Now, I will say I probably have some videos kind of give you guys some tips and suggestions just from a new player experience. But I would just say that number one for me, I like to read everything. So I went through, I started actually reading, decided to go with the pathway that I picked here, which is kind of focused a little bit more on evasion and maximum energy shield. And there were a lot of adjustments that I've made along the way. And I'll talk about those adjustments at certain pivotal points throughout this video, right? So that, of course, again, it's really important you focus your pathway because then eventually you'll be able to kind of get a better idea of what your character does, but then being able to spread across and experimenting and trying different things. And I think that that's the number one thing that I would say that I've gathered from this game so far is that you have to experiment, right? You have to experiment. If you don't experiment, you're just not going to really find what you like. And I think that goes into your weapon as well, right? So even down when we're looking here at my gear, I obviously am using the quarterstaff. That is like one of the main weapons for the monk. But you have to be considerate as far as what gear you have on. Those things are going to determine as well as what stats you might want to focus, whether you need more strength or dexterity or intelligence. There's a lot of different things that kind of go into understanding and just kind of looking at these interfaces, right? So that was the first barrier, right? Like try to really understand and getting into what each thing or each aspect of the game has to offer. Now, I'll say the next barrier is actually finding skills you want to use, right? I think that that's the next thing. So let's actually go into the combat sequence so you guys can kind of get an idea of what that looks like. Okay, guys, so here we are in the enemy map, but first thing I wanted to show you guys was the skill I was using so that you can kind of get an idea as far as the direction I was going in. Now, I am using the Wave of Frost. It's one of my favorite abilities I've gotten so far. It's a little bit more of a development skill that you get later. You got to kind of play the game, but it is something that's really cool to have. Ice Strike is another one that I really have been enjoying. Killing Palm is one that you get early, and I've been using that quite a bit. The Herald of Ice is just kind of increasing some of that ice cold damage that I'm doing. We are also using the Glacial Cascade and the Frozen Locust, as well as the Quarterstaff Strike, right? So those are all the abilities that I'm currently like mainly using. I have one like electric ability on, but I might throw that in every like once in a while, but not really that often, right? We're mainly focused on the ice here. Now, the cool thing is that, you know, as you kind of go through, like, look at that, right? All frozen, right? Now, I use the Killing Palm when the opponents light up with a blue like that. I can execute them like that, right? So that's like one of the really, really insane gimmicks that I've been really enjoying with the monk is that, right? Is that value there. Now, I have some electric abilities, and I've been trying to like kind of work out like the elemental interactions, because if I remember, I know it's like if a unit is shocked, they can like take certain amounts of damage or frozen. It's one of the two, right? I'm still learning, but either way, it is really cool to see like how they developed everything, and everything's just super fluid if you make it to be, right? And that's something that I will say is like one of the big hurdles is that you have to kind of develop that. and getting things to that point, right, of where it feels more fluid to your liking, and it's not just something that just feels like they're just random abilities put together, right? So for me, it's like everything I'm doing is all about like having some form of evasion or way to get out, because I am a close combat character, right, for the most part, right? At least right now. We're trying to make things a little bit more ranged, but we are very close quarters. We got to get in. You know, I'm usually in the forefront. You know, I'm playing with a lot of people that are playing Witch and Sorcerer, so I'm usually the one that's in the forefront for the most part, right? So having abilities that can get me in and out have just been really helpful, right? So you kind of see here, this is just like the generalized like looping of my abilities, and just how and what I've aimed for so far, right? But if you guys have any suggestions, make sure you guys come through to the twitch.tv/ZoxysCon, because I'd always love to hear what you guys want to maybe try to work on or theory craft, because yeah, there's a lot of different possibilities in this game. Now with all of that, that brings us back full circle to the thing that completely changed the trajectory of my account and my overall experience. Now, mind you, I just showed you guys my chaining, and it looks really cool for me personally, but one of the things that it was not doing was hitting, right? It was not doing enough damage. I was like, dude, I feel like a wet noodle slapping these enemies, and they are hitting me like they are sending rockets at me, right? Now, of course, with that, one of the things that I had to take a look at, and the last thing that I thought of, which should have been the first thing that I thought of, was reinvesting and reallocating my passive skills. I feel like this is the name of the game, the experimentation, the experimenting generally, right? And so at one point I was actually invested in the reduced mana cost, the mana regen here with the conservative casting, right? So I was in this node and I was thinking like, you know, hey, if I have more mana, I could just spam my abilities more. But the problem with that is that you kind of also have to consider, especially with my class, for example, right? And this is going to be to each its own in your own respective class. I didn't need to have nearly as much mana, and if I really needed to, I could just use a flask because I have enough charges to be able to get through and sustain a fight and having enough mana. And so with that, I basically took all of this away, right? I took that all back, and I actually decided to start going up this way. And what's kind of funny is this is why I cannot stress enough that you have to read things, because I was not reading the fact that attack damage was here, right? And that's not even just here, but if you go back even further, attack damage is one of the first things that you can come across, right? I just completely ignored this, like completely and utterly, right? And that hurt me quite a bit as far as just feeling like my build was subpar and feeling like it wasn't that great. And once I actually realized that, I was like, holy crap, this is insane. So once I kind of got that all down packed and I was able to, you know, kind of get this together and went this pathway, I did not realize how much this actually affected every single thing in my kit, right? So again, this is why just going back and reading, right? I went to my Ice Strike. Let's actually go to my character skills. I went to my Ice Strike, for example. Actually, let's not even look at Ice Strike. Let's look at Glacial Cascade. Now, it says it converts 60% of physical damage to cold damage. I didn't read that. I really wasn't even understanding it. Like, I seen it, but I didn't really understand it. And then the other thing is that with that, it actually allowed me to be able to freeze my opponents much faster. So now bosses, I was actually only freezing them one time in an entire fight, right? Like, it was insane. To now I'm able to freeze them 3 and 4 times because I actually increased the amount of damage, which that conversion now is equating to more cold damage, which equals out to being more frost like meter, right? Which again, that kind of gets a little bit more complex there, and I'm still trying to understand it myself, but it makes sense, right? I guess, right? It makes sense. So that was something that was really, really interesting, and I was just like, holy crap, like this is the part of the game where you really do have to take the time to really start investing in understanding that it's okay, right? If you have to backpedal, that was one of the things I had to do. I had to completely backpedal all of this. Like, I was all up here somewhere, completely backpedal, took this away, and I went this pathway, and it completely changed my build and made it so much better. But then that also made it to where now I'm just looking at this like, okay, well, if I did this, then what if I start getting some more of this attack here, right? Like, what if I go and pick that up? How much more damage can I do? How much faster can I freeze my opponents, right? So this is just the new player experience. And I know I sound very excited, but it is because I genuinely am, right? I really honestly feel like there's so many different layers and there's so many different things that this game has to offer. There's so many different things that you have to learn, right? And I will say, just going in fresh, no experience, no advice on how to do things or what to do specifically, this game was absolutely fun. And I will say that overall, with this video, guys, I'm telling you right now, if you do not get used to having to invest in going back and forth and changing and moving things around, you are not going to find the build that really suits you or is really fun. I will say that that was the thing for me, right? Like, I really was like, okay, this changes everything. Now, of course, with that being said, if I had to give an honest impression or rating of the game, it would be a 9 out of 10. I would just rip that Band-Aid off. I think the only reason why is because, again, if you got booted off of the game, it's just like, we're all experiencing that. And it's over almost 1 million people concurrent that's trying to play the game. So again, I'll give them some grace there. They've been very, very receptive as far as the development team on their socials, which I think has been super, super cool with how they're communicating and how they're just treating everybody. And I will also say, guys, I hope that you guys join me on twitch.tv/ZoxysCon, going through the game, experiencing the game, trying to, you know, just get a handle in the universe of Path of Exile and now shifting into Path of Exile 2. It's just been an absolute blast, man. And I feel like if you're just as bad as me, you can be good at the game too, right? It's just a matter of your willingness and ability to be patient and just learning and experimenting. I feel like that's the biggest thing. So we are going to have more videos in the future. So I hope that you guys subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. All you guys, stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.